Excited to talk some basketball. What's going on? And welcome back to Idaho Sports Talk. In studio, a very special guest to the Boise State basketball fan. 5th all-time in Boise State scoring, 2nd all-time in assists, and now an assistant coach with the Philadelphia 76ers. In studio, Coby Karl. Welcome for the first time you've been in our studio. Coby, how's it feel, man? Welcome to the show.
Yeah, no, it's great to be in here. It's fun to see all the old names. See Kellen Moore all over here, Max Rice, Roberto Bergerson.
Did you ever lay in a bed of roses during your Boise State career?
No, I haven't had that picture yet.
Coby took a picture of our Kellen laying on a bed of roses when he first walked in. I have a feeling maybe a certain ex-Boise State quarterback is going to get that picture sent to him tonight at some point. I love it. So good to have you back, Coby, in studio. And I guess I'll just start. Your former team, a team you worked for a long time, very passionate, I'm sure, with your ties with the Lakers. They always know how to sneak into the news cycle. Danny Hurley says no to the proposed offer, 6 years at $70 million. And just your thoughts as an assistant coach in the NBA and the state of that. What went through your head when you saw that Hurley didn't want the Laker gig?
Yeah, I think there's a respect for each level, right? The coaching at each level is very different. I think it's cool for him, being a coach's son and having that lineage. And then it's cool for us as coaches to see that the value that the Lakers were putting on coaching. It's a big number to take an organization. And I think you see our game keep growing, and I think being on the coaching side of it, I think it's nice to see that there's a value to it.
Coby Karl with us. Advice you would give, or just your thoughts, and when you see the college coach going to the NBA, it felt like Billy Donovan did this same thing, but he said yes after he had Florida. He felt maxed out. What are some of the big challenges there, and what you've probably seen it up close?
Well, I've talked a lot to Leon about this. Is for the college coach, every game is kind of the Super Bowl, right? You get to prepare all week for it. You get only 2 games a week. The scouting report is a little more in depth, and then you have a lot more time with your players, right? There's a build up to it. There's more practice time. And in the NBA, it's very different. There's very limited amount of time on the court with your guys. There's very limited amount of time in the summer with your guys. So it's a whole different ball game. And then 82 games to 30 games, you can get to 40 maybe. 82 games is a grind. The travel in and out of cities, arriving at 2 a.m. That stuff adds up over time, especially for your players. So just having a pulse on that stuff is really important.
Coby Karl, he's in studio. Coby Karl, he's in studio with us, former Boise State basketball player, 5th all-time now. We're going to talk about that with Tyson Degenhart later on in the season. You might get bumped to 6th, dude, but that's still pretty good. We're talking about the NBA. We're talking about all kinds of things. I want to bring up some Leon Rice stuff as well. Let's go back to the Lakers, though, and you don't want to speak for Danny Hurley. There's no way I'm going to put you in that situation. But from your perspective, and the Lakers as a brand are always going to be a spectacular job and a spectacular brand. We know that for a fact. Right now, with this roster, with LeBron Gate, with Bronny drama, with all that other kind of stuff, can you see that maybe it's not the job that it could be? Is that fair?
I don't know if that's fair. I think obviously if you put it on paper like that, you can make an argument, but I think the Lakers' job is always going to be the Lakers' job. The Lakers have shown that they're always going to be relevant. They're always going to make a push to win the championship. So they'll find a way. I think Jeannie's done an incredible job. Obviously, she's been kind to me and my family over the years. Mm-hmm. And Rob's done a great job. The whole family, the whole organization figures out a way. Obviously, LeBron speaks for himself. But you could add those up, but I think at the end of the day, they can probably make a pretty compelling argument that they're going to be relevant no matter what.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about that, especially from the brand. And you certainly have a unique perspective with the college game and the pro game and growing up with basketball the day you were born. Everybody says that, college football coaches are bailing for the NFL because they don't want to put up with the nonsense. And here's a high profile. He's the poster boy of college basketball, and he's sticking, me being the positive guy that I've always been. That's a joke. I took the positive side today. Today was a fantastic day for college sports, don't you think? Or is that, again, am I putting too much into that?
Yeah, I don't know. I think every situation is so unique, right? You never know what those conversations are had in there. You don't know what the intentions behind from the coach, the family perspective. I think is something that's really important to me, and you just never know what each individual values and what each organization values. Um, I think for the NCAA, I think they're going through a change right now that from the people I'm talking to, it's not easy on them, but change
Yeah.
is never easy for us. So I think it's just something to be aware of. I think it's cool that, like I said, that the NBA values coaching that much, and they're trying to find ways to keep enhancing our game. From the college perspective, I think it is difficult to see. It seems to be the wild, wild west and free agency at its max. It's and I just talked to the team this afternoon, so I think it's one of those things that we're just going to have to kind of keep a pulse on as it goes with NCAA, and I think there's some changes that need to be made.
I want to throw this one in here, Coby Karl. You just talked to the Boise State team earlier today. What are your thoughts on what Leon has here? Tyson Degenhart going into year 4. You like what you see down there?
Well, I mean, I think he articulated pretty well with me. He's excited. He thinks it can be one of his most special teams, and he knows he's always a positive guy. But I thought the most poignant point that he brought was he has 2 all-league players already. And I think that's, when you start with 2 all-league players and possibly a player of the year candidate, that's a pretty good start. And then I think the consistency, the leadership that Tyson's provided throughout his career has been pretty incredible. I think that stuff is invaluable. And I think it shows to the character of who he is, but also the development of leaders that Leon and his staff has done over the years.
Let's talk about that real quick in terms of the staff. I mean, I've always thought that Leon's superpower is his staff. I'm not taking anything away from Leon. He put this staff together, but he's got a defensive coordinator in Burns who's was one of the most experienced, smartest guys that I've ever met around basketball. Tim Duryea is certainly a respected guy in his profession, and even people underneath him, starting with Roberto Bergeson and Moats and everybody else. I love his staff, the dynamics of his staff, and they've been together for 3, 4, 5 years now. How do you do that in college sports these days?
I think I agree with you. I think I've learned a ton from Leon's style. I was just talking with one of his staff members before we came over. I think that's the sign of a great leader, when you can bring people in that are smarter than you and then let them do their job, and then also make them feel valued and make them understand that there's purpose here, and that there's a future here, and finding ways to compensate them and show them that vision, I think is what leaders are supposed to do. So I think it's a credit to Leon for being able to do that. And Burns, I've had a lot of conversations. I've known him since I was a kid, and
Oh, nice.
and I've talked to him. He helped me out a lot this season, just perspective as an assistant coach and stuff like that. And he speaks so highly of Leon, and I think that relationship, shows who Leon is.
Having a great conversation here with Boise State legend Coby Karl, Philadelphia Sixers assistant coach, and your first year there on the NBA bench. Our boy Brian Gates too, Boise State alum, on Nick Nurse's staff there in Philly. I mean, what would you say you learned the most on after this year and whatnot? And how charged and juiced are you, Coby, to keep on this trek and one day obviously become a head coach in that league?
Well, I have an immense amount of respect for those guys like Brian that have been doing this for so long, because it's a lot of work, man. It's a lot of hours, a lot of stress. And, I learned a lot from all those guys, tactically, just hearing the way they see the game, their experiences through the playoffs and all that. And my excitement lies in the work that I can do during the summer. Now I know what the whole looks like. I can do some work in advance to prepare myself to make it a little more productive, have a little better connection, be able to help Coach Nurse and in our organization at a higher level. I thought last year, I tried, but I think at the same time I was new to the position, and I learned a lot because of it. And now it's an opportunity to learn from everything.
In doing a research for this interview, I went back and read a couple of interviews that you have done in the past, and I found this. If there's a word that you've used a couple of different times, and probably more, collaborators. It seems like that's a very important word for you, and it's certainly a very important word for your profession, even ours. I mean, we have staff meetings every Monday morning or every morning trying to put together shows. We sit around and collaborate around the table. At your level, it's way more intense than that. Is that something you learned from your dad? And being a first-year coach on an NBA staff, learning on the fly in public on national television, how do you become a great collaborator?
Yeah, I think that's something, especially coming from a head coaching perspective. I've seen my dad do it. I've done it as a head coach, and then figuring out how to be one of those pieces rather than the one who kind of makes it happen. Um, but yeah, collaboration, you're absolutely right. You hit it on the head. I believe in it highly. I just believe in trying to figure out ways to maximize each other, figuring out ways to pull out your strengths and then support my weaknesses. So it's just something that I had to figure out. And I think I learned a lot from Leon on this in this situation is the relationship. Trying to find time to have those relationships, build that trust. Um, so yeah, that was the process for me this year, and it was hard because of the amount of work we had and the amount of pressure that we're trying to win a championship at our level, and we have a couple of the best players in the world on our team. So it's fun. It's challenging.
Yeah.
But it's a challenge worth pursuing.
I always watch when I do watch the Sixers, I'm always watching for Coby Karl back there, and you seem pretty intense, man. You're having a good time. Coby Karl with us, and the only player in NBA history to have played with Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, and Steph Curry, arguably the three best players in the last 20 years or so. Kobe's been a teammate of all three. I want to focus on the Kobe Bryant year that you got to spend with the legend that is Kobe, the Laker team. You guys go all the way to the finals that year. Kobe in practice, you got to live it for a year, and I've heard the stories of how intense he was, and it was. How much did you take away from that and apply into coaching in your basketball life?
Yeah, I think when you ask the question, I think the first thing I think about is coaching, actually. I think about the way Phil Jackson allowed Kobe to be our leader and allow us to pursue forward and kind of go off of his intensity. Because a lot of coaches don't like that type of conflict, that type of intensity in the practices. But Kobe would get after it. He would challenge you. He would challenge his teammates to physical altercations. He would challenge you verbally to see if you're up for the challenge. And I think knowing competition now at this level is you have to do that. We've all seen the Last Dance documentary with Michael Jordan. It's iron sharpens iron, and I think that's the pursuit for those guys at that level. They need to know that you're capable. But the one of the more tactical things I saw from Kobe that was pretty cool was he wouldn't always be intense. He was a little later in his career at that point. But he was very intentional about trying to practice one thing at a time, right? He wouldn't always, necessarily try to score every time, but he would want to work on his pinch post game, or he'd want to work on his one-on-one defense on a certain day. He'd want to work on his off-ball defense, so he's very intentional with using the opportunity to sharpen some part of his skill set.
Let's talk about, I want to go back to Philadelphia for a second. And I think, I don't know exactly what your specific role is, but I've read that one of your priorities is offensive schemes and working with the offense. Obviously, Embiid had that 70-point game earlier this year. You're one of only 5 teams in the entire NBA this year that averaged 108 points. You're number 2 in 3 points made, 3-point attempts, number 1 in 3-point shooting, number 2 in free throw shooting. Shooting and offense are obviously very important to the scheme that you and Coach Nurse and the staff run. Two-part question. One, you're obviously a great shooter in college, but why offense in the NBA for you? Are you more comfortable coaching offense than defense? And 2, when you put together something and see the results like this, offensive scheme and great results, that's got to be a pretty satisfying season for you.
Well, I think for us, it's everything starts with Nick. It's whatever Nick Nurse's vision is, and then I have to take that and try to complement it, and then after that, it's our players. Who do we have? So you say Joel Embiid. You add Tyrese Maxey to that, and that's a pretty good start for any organization. I think in terms of like how I found offense, I think, as I was more of an offensive player. I didn't find the joy in the defensive part of the game. It was a little harder for me. It didn't come as naturally for me. But the offensive part of the game to me is also, it's the action, right? It's the person taking action, and the defense has to respond to it. So I think that's the way I see the game, is you want to be the one attacking and creating the problem. So I've always felt like you can actually find more advantage from the offensive end than the defense. The defense to me is pretty simple. You have your structure, or you have your concepts that you're trying to take away their aggression. But offensively, I think it's fun to try to find those things. And then the fun part about it too is playing for Phil Jackson and being coached by a couple of these really good coaches. I feel like I've learned to figure out how to make 5 people one, and that's like a special experience when you can see those teams, playing together and so seamlessly. And that's the goal for me as a coach, is to create where our guys are playing the game and acting without thinking.
My oddball question when it comes to basketball: is it possible to shoot too many 3-pointers in a game? Or we're obviously heading in that direction.
That's funny,
and that's the game of today. But can you shoot too many?
I mean, I think that's where, you're old school. I think that's where I'm starting to realize. I just turned 41. I'm starting to be old school.
Nice.
And
welcome to the club.
and I do think there's an essence that you lose when you just shoot all the time. And I know the analytics behind it. I know the mentality behind it. And I think Cleveland set themselves up to win a championship with that mentality. But man, it just puts a lot of pressure on your team when you take really difficult shots. So I always think, my dad taught in Denver, love rim like threes. And I thought that's a pretty good. And then as a player, as a competitor, it's so much easier to physically attack the rim, right? You can actually physically exert yourself. But when you're shooting the ball, that 3-point line sometimes looks really long when you don't have that confidence. And you guys probably remember that Houston series where they ended up missing 24 in a row. That pressure doesn't go away. It just gets bigger and bigger. So I just think about, similar to what you said, is I want to be able to rely on something that I can actually control a little more than those really, really hard long threes.
If anybody has a question for Coby Karl, 208-424-9300, we can open up the Double Tap Pub hotline, talking hoops here with a pretty good 3-point shooter himself. Also, text in, can you name the only 2 Broncos that can say they've made more 3-pointers in their BSU career than our guest, Coby Karl? Only 2 have done it. Coby, your Sixers this year, God, you gave Boston a tough fight in that first round. That series probably would have went
New York, come on,
7 games. Sorry, man, the Knicks, my bad. But the Boston Celtics, like I wanted to talk about in the finals, caught me on that one. Sorry. How do you see this series lining up? How can Dallas sneak game 3 in there and get this thing to be a series again?
I mean, it's gonna be hard, right? We've all seen the potency of what Boston has in kind of what they've planned all year, right? It's coming to fruition. One thing that comes to mind immediately is one, home court matters.
Okay.
I think the energy in that building is gonna be pretty awesome. I think 2 is you have 2 probably of the greatest offensive players ever to play with Luka and Kyrie. And then, I think I worked with Jason Kidd in LA, and I think Jason is a really good coach in terms of, like, he's very poised, and I think he instills confidence in his group. And I think you see that in Luka, you see that in Kyrie's maturation. So I'm confident that they'll find a way to, be who they are, right? And I think in these situations, something I really believe in is you got to be more of who you are when it's harder. You're not going to try to really adapt and change anything at this point, right? You are who you are. So I think finding that confidence and then going in with a little bit more fight, a little more swagger, and letting it fly.
Boise State basketball legend Coby Karl. We're talking a little basketball, a little NBA. Let me ask you about your fandom. When you, this time of year, when you're watching basketball on TV, is it easy for you to be a fan, or do you find yourself driving yourself crazy being a coach?
Yeah.
No, I actually don't like watching. I don't.
Do you though? Do you force yourself to?
Yeah,
or?
I try. Like, it's funny because, like, just the habit of it. I'm excited to watch the playoff game, and I put it on, and then
10 minutes later, you're mad.
it's like it's hard to watch. And I think, just being so close to it, right? I remember I was thinking about it before I got in here, watching that Ted Lasso series. He talks about, when he's like a pundit, he talks about, I'm not in that locker room. I don't know what that kid's going through. And I think once you get that close to it and you can feel that intensity, and you're in that locker room, and you get to know the people and the pieces and everything that goes into it, and you get to do that work, I think it's hard to just watch as a fan, because you know that there's so much more than just the result that you're seeing on the court. So, and then you can get something out of it watching, like, Luka's greatness, and seeing if some of these young stars like Tatum and Brown come and make something out of it. I enjoy watching Holiday because he was kind of playing when I was playing, which is crazy. Seeing him, seems like a very high character man and leader, and that's exciting to see those people get rewarded.
I love Holiday. Last for me, Coby Karl, just where do you see this career taking you? I mean, what are you open to? Would you ever consider a major college job, even though the nonsense that's going on in that sport as well?
Yeah, I think, right now in my life, I was just talking to my wife about this. I think anything is available at this point. I think I'm very grateful to the organization and Nick Nurse giving me an opportunity to coach at this level. But, I love leading groups of people. And that's an ambition of me is to be a head coach at some level. And that's the most exciting thing to me is putting those pieces together, whether it's staff like we talked about with Leon, whether it's players on the court and getting to know my players in that sense. So I'm doing that at the assistant level now, but I think I'm open to a lot of stuff right now. I got an agent this summer, which I haven't really had an agent. And
Okay.
just, my kids are 7 and 9 and trying to build into that future. So, I don't know. Kellen Moore obviously is someone that we follow here at Boise State. We're very proud of, and I think he's going through the same thing. So I'm excited to hopefully connect with him
in Philly.
Yeah.
What about I'm going to go off and guess that not guess, but I'm going to go off and predict that you and Brian Gates will both be head coaches in the NBA at one point in your career. And I really firmly believe in that for all the right reasons, but I'm not a basketball guy. So let me stick with what I do know. Summer vacation. You showed up with a tan. Did you fall asleep at the lake yesterday? And most important, just you're in town obviously for a few days, got a family and you're hanging out for a few days. What do you do? Because you're right, for 9 months, man, the intensity of all intensities. How do you unwind and what do you do when you come back to Boise?
Yeah. No, this actually was just because I'm really pale. So I spend I think an hour in the sun, and this is what the result is. So, just spending time. My wife actually just lost her father. So we're here, coming together as a family and getting through that together, which is unfortunate, but, it's good to have family around. And then, being out with my kids. So they were riding their bikes this morning and going on walks and just spending time with my family. I think that's the most important thing for me is just that quality time. Just to be around people that you love and that know you. And I think that's, in that 8-month stretch where you're literally all over the world and you start to lose focus and kind of lose touch with reality at times. We're literally being shuttled from private jets to 5-star hotels. And, you really doesn't. Yeah. But at some point it all just becomes fluff, right? I'm in a laptop most of the day and on the court working with guys and practice, and your mindset never really stops. So I think part of that is, like I said earlier, is working this summer to really get better with the tactical side of what Coach Nurse wants and what we're trying to do, get to know our players better and connect that side of it so I can do a better job. And then, the other side of it is spending as much time with my family and taking advantage of this time off. And I don't have a lot of hobbies, to be honest.
Basketball.
I love McCall.
Yeah.
I love McCall, Idaho.
That's a hobby.
That is a hobby.
Hey, just speaking of which, and we know that there was medical scares for you and your father, well publicized stuff many years ago, and you look great. Dad's doing great. Last we saw, what's the update with you and Dad?
Yeah, no, my dad, Nick Nurse was great to him. He came out and he was around the team about 3 times throughout the season, and he loves being in the gym. It's like, it's funny. I forgot who it was. It was one of our players. That he came out to the gym in Denver, and he's like, "Man, your dad just looks like so happy to be in the gym." I was like, "You're absolutely right."
Yeah,
he loves it. So he's good. It's funny. Coach Burns he lost about 55 pounds. I said he reminded me of my dad because when my dad went through his cancer scare, he lost about 55 pounds. But yeah, no, we're all both healthy, from what I know, and having fun. I know my dad seems very at a place of peace. I think that the Hall of Fame induction and that recognition really helped him find some grace.
And you and Coach Gates both expect to be back with Philadelphia next year? That's the plan?
Yeah, no, the June 1 the Sixers picked up my option for next year, so I'll be back. And Coach Gates is supposed to be back. Yeah, I just talked to him before we left, before I came out here, I think last week, Wednesday. So,
but by the way, he reached out like 2 months ago, and we became pretty. I know you and Ballgame are pretty close, and B. Gates and I are pretty close. We used to, do some shenanigans back in the day that we'll keep quiet. But he reached out like 3 months ago and asked me for Kellen Moore's phone number, and I sent it to him, and I never heard back. I never got a thank you. I didn't know if I sent it to, Stephen Poughkeepsie or whatever. Tell him he owes me a thank you. But more importantly, and you kind of alluded to it, you and Kellen and B. Gates, have you all hung out yet? Because you're all like living in the same neighborhood, probably.
No, I was telling Ballgame before we got in. we've passed text back and forth, and Kellen was going back to California still when he first got the job, and we haven't had a chance. We've been in contact. I want to when I go back out there, I'm gonna try to get out there if they got any OTAs or anything. So we haven't had any time to hang out and give B Gates some grace. Like I said, that 8 months is, man, he had a lot of work on his shoulders this year, and he did a great job as one of our senior members of our staff, and so he was in the midst of it for sure.
8 months of intense work and triplets at home.
Yeah.
Yeah. You ever play basketball with Kellen?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I played with like Ryan or college.
Darren College, okay.
College, and I think maybe I played with Ryan Clady.
School the football
you know,
guys.
who was really good? Julius, the DB coach.
Julius Brown.
Yeah, Julius Brown, man. He
could ball.
Yeah.
Coby, we love how you're still Boise, man. You always come back here. I know you know with your family and whatnot, and we're really sorry to hear about the passing of your father-in-law. And thanks for giving us some time today, talking hoops and life. And we're going to keep bugging you. We're always going to bring you on Idaho Sports Talk, man.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys. It's a privilege. This is a huge piece of my identity is the city of Boise, and my mom's family is out here, and we got a lot of family out here. So I think everyone's kind of figuring out that Boise's a spot to be.
Coby Karl, and that's why you listen to Idaho Sports Talk. Prater The Ballgame, KTIK, The Ticket.
From the Beacon Plumbing Traffic Studios, this